My dad walked out at dinner when I asked one question about the family he hid for 17 years. We were sitting at the dining table like any other Tuesday night. Mom had made her usual apple crisp for dessert, steam still rising from the dish, as we passed around plates and cracked small jokes about our day. The atmosphere was easy, light, and unremarkable until I opened my mouth. "Dad, who's the woman in that photo I found in your drawer? The one with the 2 kids." That was all I said. His hand, which had been reaching for the whipped cream, stopped midair. Fork still in the other hand, his body froze in a way that didn't match the warmth in the room. His eyes didn't meet mine. He didn't look at Mom. He didn't even blink. A second passed. Then another. The entire house felt like it exhaled all at once. Air turning thick, heavy, and foreign. Without a word, he stood. He didn't even push the chair back fully, just rose abruptly, like the floor beneath him had turned to fire. He walked out of the dining room, grabbed his keys off the hook by the door, and left. "No sus. No yakit. No answers." Mom called his name, but only once. Quietly, like she already knew he wouldn't respond. I sat there, fork in hand, watching the front door slowly close behind him. The silence after was worse than the sound of it shutting. I didn't even look at Mom. I just stood up, heart pounding but head oddly calm, and walked down the hallway to their bedroom. The photo wasn't hard to find. I'd come across it last week while searching for a charger in his drawer, half buried under old receipts and a watch he never wore anymore. It was a printed photo, not digital, like something from an old disposable camera. In it, he was standing beside a woman I'd never seen before. She had dark hair, pulled into a loose ponytail, and her smile looked too easy. Standing in front of them were 2 kids, a boy and a girl. The boy looked around 10, the girl a little younger. My dad's arm was around the woman's waist. He looked happy. At the time, I told myself it must have been an old friend, maybe a cousin or someone from his past. But the longer I stared at the photo, the less sense it made. He never mentioned anyone like her. And those kids, they had his chin, his eyes, the same stubborn dimple I had. I hadn't meant to bring it up at dinner. It just slipped. And now, after 17 years of birthdays, bedtime stories, and PDA meetings, he was gone with no explanation. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the way he'd looked at nothing when I asked that question. Not surprised, not confused, just empty, like he'd been waiting for it. So I started digging. First, I looked through the drawers. Nothing. Then, under the bed. A box I'd never seen before was wedged deep behind a suitcase. Inside were papers, envelopes, old forms, and photographs. Some were recent. One envelope had mail addressed to a Linda Carver at an address 2 towns over. I didn't recognize the name, but the return address matched the area code on a business card I found for a landscaping service. The name on the card? David Carver, my dad. He never told us he had another last name. I opened my laptop and typed the name into every search bar I could find. Property records, social media, school directories. By 3 a.m., I had pieced together the basics. There was a house about 40 minutes from ours, owned by David Carver, occupied by Linda Carver and 2 children, Caleb and Emma, ages 14 and 12. The photo made sense now. My half-siblings. The kids had school district profiles online, basic info, mentions in newsletters. Their last name was Carver, not Miller. My dad had been living 2 lives. For how long, I didn't know yet. But judging by their ages, and by the look in that photo, long enough that this wasn't some temporary mistake. This was deliberate, built, maintained. 17 years. That's how long he'd sat at our dinner table, laughed at our jokes, taught me how to drive, and told stories about his own childhood, all while hiding an entirely separate existence. I didn't know how Mom hadn't found out. I didn't know how I hadn't noticed. But the cracks were there, I realized now. The long work trips. The nights when he came home too late to say goodnight. The calls he'd step outside to answer. We accepted it because we trusted him. Now, I couldn't trust anything. The next morning, Mom didn't ask about it. She packed my lunch like normal, told me to have a good day. Her hands moved automatically, her eyes avoiding mine, like a machine set on a script. I didn't push her. Not yet. I needed more. By lunch, I had an address. I skipped school that afternoon and took the bus as close as I could get, walking the last mile to a neighborhood lined with mailboxes and neat lawns. The Carver mailbox sat in front of a pale blue house with white shutters. Bikes were scattered on the lawn. A dog barked from somewhere behind the fence. I didn't knock. I just stood there, staring at the house, wondering if he was inside, if they were eating snacks after school, if he was laughing with them the way he used to laugh with me. I stayed until the porch light turned on. Then I turned and walked away. I didn't return home right away. After leaving the neighborhood, I sat on a bench outside a gas station, watching cars roll by without looking at anyone in particular. The name Carver echoed through my head, not because it was unfamiliar, but because of how unnatural it sounded on my dad. All my life, I'd known him as Eric Miller. Quiet, consistent, never too loud, never reckless. Someone who ironed his shirts every Sunday night and made pancakes every third Saturday like it was a rule written into our family. The man I knew didn't keep secrets. But clearly, the man I thought I knew never existed. When I got home that night, the house felt too still. My mom was in the kitchen, but the lights were dimmer than usual. I walked in quietly, expecting a confrontation, but she didn't look up. She was slicing vegetables, slowly, methodically, with the cutting board turned sideways like she wasn't really watching what she was doing. I stood behind her for a second. Then I said, "You knew." She stopped cutting, but didn't turn around. I waited. She set the knife down, finally faced me, and her expression told me everything before she said a word. "I found out 9 years ago," she said. "That hit harder than anything else. 9 years. Not a month, not a year. Nearly a decade." "How?" I asked because I had to know. She moved to the table and sat, motioning for me to do the same. Her voice didn't shake. She looked calm, like she'd already lived through this moment in her head long before it ever arrived. I found a hotel receipt in his coat pocket. There were 2 nights listed, not one, and the address was nowhere near where he said he'd be. At first I thought he was seeing someone else. I didn't know there were kids involved. I followed him the next time he said he had to go out of town. It wasn't hard. He's not a clever liar. I waited, biting back questions that stacked too fast in my mind. "He was at a soccer game," she continued. "The girl was about 5. The boy maybe 7. He was cheering, talking to the woman like they'd been together for years. I didn't go up to them. I didn't confront him. I drove home and sat in the driveway for 2 hours before I went inside." "You stayed," I said, barely above a whisper. "I did," she replied, eyes meeting mine without hesitation. "You were 8. You adored him. I told myself it was a phase or a mistake, something that would pass. I didn't want to blow up your childhood." I couldn't tell if I was angrier at her or at myself for not seeing it. "And now," she said, "I'm just tired of pretending." But I didn't walk away because I thought it would be worse for you if I did. The explanation didn't fix anything. It didn't make the truth easier to carry. But it made one thing clear. This was never just a secret. It had infected the entire house long before I saw that photo. I didn't sleep again that night. My thoughts kept circling the same realization. He wasn't gone, not really. He was just somewhere else. With them. Living a second version of the life we had, maybe even better than the one we shared. The next morning, I skipped school again. I took the same bus, walked the same stretch of sidewalk to the blue house with the white shutters. This time, I didn't stop across the street. I walked up to the front porch and rang the bell. A woman answered, shorter than I expected, with soft lines around her eyes and a look of confusion that immediately turned into something else, recognition. Not because she knew me, but because something about my face must have given me away. Her eyes darted across my features like she was reading a language she barely understood. "Can I help you?" she asked. I hesitated. I didn't have a plan. I hadn't rehearsed this part. My mouth moved on instinct. "Is David here?" The pause told me she didn't buy the question. "Who are you?" I considered lying, saying I was a friend or someone from work, but what came out was the truth. I'm his son. Her face didn't twist in shock. She didn't step back or slam the door. She looked at me for a long moment, then stepped outside, closing the door gently behind her. You're from the other family. The way she said it, not bitter, not angry, was worse than if she had screamed. It was matter of fact, like she'd practiced saying it for years and finally got to use the line. Yeah, I said. I always wondered if you'd show up someday. She walked past me and sat on the porch steps. I followed, unsure of the rules now that the mask was off. You knew about us? I asked. I knew he had a son, she replied. I didn't know he still lived with you. I thought he left. Started over. He never left, I said. He just played both sides. She didn't flinch. That sounds like him. I looked at her, really looked this time. She wasn't glamorous or flashy. She looked like someone who'd learned to be alone even when she wasn't. I wondered what he'd told her about us. If he spun the same lies in reverse, maybe we were the ones he used to be with. Maybe he told her we didn't matter anymore. Where is he now? I asked. She didn't answer immediately. Then, without looking at me, she said, he left last night. Took his truck and a bag. Didn't say where he was going. He did the same to us, I said. Got up from dinner and walked out. We sat in silence. Then she turned to me. You want to meet them, don't you? I didn't answer out loud. I didn't have to. I'm not going to stop you, she said. But I'm not going to explain it to them, either. You want to see them, you do it yourself. But don't come in here pretending this is your house. I'm not, I said. I just needed to see it. They're not home right now, she added. They're at school. And no, they don't know about you. He never told them. I nodded, stood up, and stepped off the porch. One more thing, she said. If he comes back, don't wait around for him to explain anything. He's had 17 years to do that. If he didn't tell you by now, he never planned to. I didn't say goodbye. I just walked away. That night, I went back through the box I'd found in my parents' bedroom. Among the papers was a folded piece of yellow notebook paper. It was written in my dad's handwriting, slanted, controlled, addressed to no one. It wasn't dated and it wasn't signed. Just a few sentences, scrawled like he'd written them in a rush. There's no way to split this clean. I tried to build two lives. I failed at both. I love them. I love you. And I know that doesn't help anyone. That was it. Not an apology. Not an explanation. Just a confession that didn't fix anything. I kept reading it until the words stopped meaning anything. The next morning, I checked the school directory again. Found Caleb's grade. Emma's extracurriculars. Their school had an open track meet listed for Saturday. It wasn't hard to guess they might be there. When Saturday came, I showed up early and sat in the far bleachers. The kind of seat where you can see everything, but no one sees you. I watched people mill around with folding chairs and water bottles. Around noon, I spotted her, Emma. She was wearing a green jersey with her school's name printed in white. She was running in the 200-meter event. She looked focused, confident, nothing like a kid who'd spent her life being lied to. Caleb was near the snack stand, holding a bottle of sports drink and talking with two other boys. He looked a little taller than me, sharper jawline, same dimple. It felt like I was looking through a window into a life I never got to live. I didn't approach them. Not yet. Instead, I went home and printed the photo, the one I found in the drawer. I stared at it until it didn't hurt anymore. Then I flipped it over and wrote the names. Emma, Caleb, Linda. I added the year. I slipped it into an envelope and sealed it. The next day, I mailed it to the Carver house. No return address. No note. Just the picture. The photo arrived at their house 3 days later. I knew because I waited by the corner store on their block and watched from across the street as the mail was delivered. Linda collected it like it was any other envelope, flipped it once in her hand, then took it inside without pause. No reaction from her face. No clue if she recognized the handwriting or the contents. But now, the photo was in the right place, or at least closer to it. I didn't hear from anyone. No knock on our door. No sudden call. No message. I assumed silence would be the answer, that maybe Linda shredded the photo or burned it in the sink. Or maybe she left it on the table for them to find. Either way, I let it sit. I didn't plan to chase anything else down. I wasn't trying to fix it anymore. I just wanted someone to carry the weight of it besides me. But 5 days later, he showed up. It was just past 8 at night. I was sitting on the porch alone when headlights crawled down the street and parked in front of our house. His truck. Same one I remembered from soccer games and Saturday errands. The door opened, and he stepped out like he hadn't vanished. Like he hadn't left mid-sentence and disappeared for over a week. He didn't look surprised to see me. I didn't move, didn't stand, just watched him approach, hands in his jacket pockets, hair a little messier than usual. When he reached the steps, he stopped. "Can I sit?" I nodded once. He sat down 2 feet away, not saying anything at first. I waited. He always liked to talk on his terms. So I let him. "I've been staying in a motel near Ridge Hill," he said, staring straight ahead. Didn't go back to either house. Needed to think. I didn't respond. He shifted his weight slightly, then continued. "I didn't walk out because of the question. I walked out because I knew the minute you asked it, everything I built was over." I still didn't say anything. There wasn't much left to say that he hadn't already buried. "I never planned for it to go this far," he said, voice lower now. "It started before you were born. I met Linda when your mom and I were going through a rough stretch. It wasn't supposed to be permanent, but then Caleb came along. Then Emma. I was already tied to you, then tied to them." He looked over at me, and I told myself I could manage both. Give everyone enough to keep them happy. Enough to make it work. But I was wrong. I turned to him for the first time. "You told yourself you could manage it. But what about us? Did you ever think we'd want to choose how to live or who to trust?" He didn't flinch, but he didn't answer. "You let me grow up thinking you were one person. You let them grow up thinking the same. You made every decision for us without asking. You played father to 2 homes and lied in both." "I know," he said, "and I deserve what's coming." I wasn't sure what he meant. I asked. "They know," he said. Linda found the photo. She showed the kids. They didn't believe her at first. Then I told them everything. I didn't expect that. I thought he'd avoid it again. Dance around the truth and hide behind vague answers. "How did they take it?" I asked. "Emma cried," he said. "Caleb didn't say anything. Just walked out the back and didn't come home for hours. I think they hate me." "You earned it," I said. He nodded. "I know." I looked down the street, eyes following the curve of the sidewalk. The silence between us was different this time. Not empty, just full of everything we never said over the years. "They want to meet you," he said. I looked at him again. I didn't tell them to. I didn't push it. They said it themselves. Said if they have a brother out there, they want to know him. "I'm not sure I want to know them," I said. "You don't have to decide now," he said. But I told them your name. I gave them the truth, finally. It's theirs now, not mine to manage. He stood up after that, and I thought he'd leave. But he turned back toward the door. "Can I talk to your mom?" I didn't answer. I opened the door and walked inside. Found her in the kitchen. Told her he was outside. She didn't blink. She washed her hands, dried them on a towel, then walked past me without saying a word. I sat in the living room, listening as they talked on the porch. I couldn't hear every word, but her voice stayed even. His didn't rise either. It wasn't a fight. Just 2 people unpacking 17 years of unspoken damage in low, quiet voices. When she came back inside, she didn't look shaken. Just done. "He's leaving," she said. "For good." "Where?" I asked. I didn't ask, she replied. Didn't want to know. I nodded. We didn't talk about it again that night. The next morning, he was gone. A letter sat on the kitchen counter, addressed to me. 1 page, handwritten. "No dramatic advice." Just an acknowledgement. "I failed you. I lied too long. I won't ask for forgiveness. Just want you to know I'm not hiding anymore. If you want to know your siblings, they're open to it. If you don't, I'll respect that. I'll never come back unless asked." No paleri. Just clarity. 2 weeks passed before I made a decision. I met Emma and Caleb at a park near their school. Linda dropped them off, but didn't stay. I saw the nervousness in their eyes. The same questions I'd asked myself were now mirrored on their faces. We sat on a bench, all three of us. Emma spoke first. I saw the photo. You look like him. So do you, I said. Caleb finally said, we didn't know. We thought he was always at work. I didn't know either, I said. Not until a few weeks ago. They asked questions. I answered as best I could. We traded stories, school, birthdays, favorite places. There were gaps, of course. But something settled between us as we talked. Not trust, not yet. But something quieter. A shared wound neither of us had asked for. We stayed for 2 hours. When it was time to leave, Emma asked if we could do it again. I said yes. Later that night, I told my mom. She nodded and said she was glad. We never saw my dad again. He didn't call, didn't write. But this time, the silence didn't feel like avoidance. It felt like a door that had finally been closed. Life moved forward. Emma and I texted often. Caleb and I met at the gym a few times. Slowly, carefully, we started building something. Not as replacements. Not as a new family. Just as people bound by a truth none of us created, and none of us could ignore. My mom started seeing someone new almost a year later. Someone honest. Someone who asked real questions and didn't vanish when the hard ones came up. I liked him. I graduated high school. Caleb came to the ceremony. Emma brought a handmade sign. Mom smiled the whole time. That one question I asked at dinner destroyed the version of our life I thought was real. But it built something else, not perfect, not painless, but real.